Can you spot the lie? Welcome to Fact or Fake. We've got 16 mind-blowing statements that will challenge everything you know about medieval times and knights. Let's begin. In movies, knights' heavy plate armor made them too slow and clumsy to run or get back up if they fell. Fake. Properly fitted, plate armor weighed about 40 to 60 pounds, was well distributed, and allowed for running and standing. Bonus fact: the heaviest tournament armor was much heavier, designed for jousting. Medieval people rarely bathed and embraced being dirty. Fake. Public bathhouses were popular in cities, and most people, including peasants, washed regularly to maintain hygiene. Bonus fact: wealthier people also used wet cloths and scented waters to smell better. The iconic image of a knight's helmet with large horns is historically accurate. Fake. Horned helmets were not worn by Vikings or medieval knights in battle. It is purely a modern romanticized invention. Bonus fact: helmets were often painted with heraldic colors or patterns for decoration. Knights mostly fought with long swords as portrayed in film. Fake. Knights frequently used polearms like lances and axes, which were more effective against plate armor. Bonus fact: swords were often secondary weapons, mainly used in close-quarters combat. Most castles were huge stone fortresses surrounded by deep moats filled with water. Fake. Early castles were often small and made of wood and mud. Many moats were dry ditches to make walls look taller. Bonus fact: only the very wealthy could afford to build massive stone castles. The majority of people in the Middle Ages believed the earth was flat. Fake. Educated people, including scholars and church officials, knew the earth was round since ancient Greek times. Bonus fact: European universities established in the Middle Ages taught geography based on a spherical earth. A well-aimed slash with a sword could easily cut clean through chainmail or plate armor. Fake. Armor was extremely effective. Piercing required finding gaps, using specialized weapons, or half-swording to stab between plates. Bonus fact: plate armor was designed to deflect blows, making slashes largely useless. Social class was strictly divided into just two groups: nobles or lords and poor peasants. Fake. Medieval society was more complex, including free, land-owning farmers, merchants, tradesmen, and a variety of specialized servants. Bonus fact: a nobleman might send his son to serve as a page in another noble household. The code of chivalry for knights was a strict, universally followed set of laws dictating noble behavior. Fake. Chivalry was a flexible, shifting ideal, not a strict legal code, and many knights were often brutal and disorderly. Bonus fact: crusaders were sometimes motivated to get violent, young knights away from their homelands. Movies often accurately depict a knight being unable to move or stand up in their armor without help. Fake. Historical armored fighting manuals show knights climbing, rolling, and even running. Good armor was flexible. Bonus fact: the myth stems partly from incredibly heavy, restrictive jousting armor. Peasants and the common folk wore mostly drab, colorless clothing. Fake. Colors were readily available from natural dyes, and people wore vibrant colors, though certain bright dyes were more expensive. Bonus fact: sumptuary laws sometimes restricted certain expensive colors and fabrics to the nobility. Medieval battles were typically huge, chaotic melees where everyone fought in a disorganized brawl. Fake. Pitched battles were rare. Warfare relied more on sieges, and when battles did occur, soldiers fought in controlled formations. Bonus fact: exhaustion in heavy armor was a major factor preventing soldiers from sprinting into battle. Knights' armor was always shiny, polished silver-gray metal. Fake. Armor was sometimes painted, blackened, or covered with fabric to prevent rust or for decorative and heraldic purposes. Bonus fact: polishing armor took up a significant amount of the total labor to create a suit. A captured knight was always killed or executed immediately. Fake. Wealthy, captured knights were generally held for ransom, as they were more valuable alive than dead. Bonus fact: the practice of ransoming noble prisoners helped fund the constant warfare. Many medieval women were confined to the home and did little outside work. Fake. Many women worked outside the home in fields, businesses, or guilds, and could inherit property or run a business. Bonus fact: in some trades, women could become masters and even teach male apprentices. The main weapon for a knight on foot was a massive two-handed sword wielded as a primary weapon. Fake. While big swords existed, smaller, long swords, spears, poleaxes, and maces were more common primary weapons in battle on foot. Bonus fact: a mace or poleaxe was highly effective against a fully armored opponent. How many did you get right? Comment your score below. Subscribe and hit the bell for more fact or fake challenges every day.